In Pit Lane is proudly brought to you by Online Invent, SEO, web marketing, web design and custom software. Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of In Pit Lane. Well, a little bit later on in the program we're going to take you up to Winton Motor Raceway for the annual Winton Historic Festival of Speed. We're going to catch up with a couple of drivers and a couple of very interesting cars with some, these people have got some great stories to tell and we're going to hear from them a little bit later on in the second segment of the program. Also coming up at the end of the program, well this weekend we're going to see something we thought that, well a lot of us thought we would never see again. Yes. This weekend, they're racing at Calder Park. Yes, proper racing, circuit racing with a round of the Victorian Motor Racing Championships. And part of that series will be the return of NASCAR-style American stock cars to Calder Park. And a little bit later on in the show, we're going to catch up with Zac O'Hara from Stockcars Racing Australia, and he's going to tell us all about the cars we're going to see this weekend, including the possibility of a special event taking place over both days on the Thunderdome itself, so stay tuned for that. But look, it's been a really busy weekend of motorsport around Australia and around the world. Let's find out what's been happening with the In Pit Lane Motorsport News. Will Brown is the current favourite to replace Shane Van Gisbergen at Triple Eight Race Engineering when the three-time supercar champion moves to NASCAR next year. According to reliable supercar sources, Brown will make the move to the Red Bull Ampol team for 2024 to drive alongside Brock Feeney. This is despite Brown's current deal with Erebus Motorsport not expiring until the end of 2024. Van Gisbergen publicly confirmed his desire to leave supercars ahead of his current contract's end, but he also said he didn't want to abandon the team and leave them without a suitable replacement. It's believed that Van Gisbergen himself was actively contacting other drivers to enable his move ahead of the decision to sign Brown. Well, more teasing troubles for the Gen 3 supercars, and this time it's got nothing to do with parity, with the control steering rack under attack from several sources. The new control rack is a front steer design, and many teams have already suffered failures and problems this year. Speaking to Speed Cafe, Tickford Racing boss Tim Edwards said that the new rack was, quote, not fit for purpose. Tickford driver Cam Waters was the latest victim of the unreliable design at the most recent round at Sydney Motorsport Park. However, many teams have suffered with the problem all season. Supercars say they're now looking into the current situation and hope to have a fix to the problem in place very soon. Well, it was a thrilling finish to last weekend's British MotoGP as Aprilia rider Alexia Spargaro won his second Grand Prix with a perfectly timed last lap pass over Francesco Bagnaia. And that wasn't the only close finish of the weekend though, as you'll see in this week's In Pit Lane International Wrap. Aprilia rider Alex Espargaro came from 12th on the grid to win his second career Grand Prix after a final lap pass on race leader Francesco Bagnaia at Silverstone. A late rain shower turned the final laps into a tense five-rider battle for the win, with Espargaro timing his run perfectly, passing the Ducati rider for the lead at Maggots. He held off Bagnaia for the rest of the lap to take the win. KTM's Brad Binder completed the podium after another strong ride. Binder's teammate Aussie Jack Miller made a great start but dropped back after running wide early in the race and finished in 8th place. The MotoGP wasn't the only thriller of the weekend as Scott McLaughlin failed by only 7/1000th of a second to haul in race winner Kyle Kirkwood in the latest round of the IndyCar Series on the streets of Nashville. Kirkwood took the race lead from McLaughlin on a late race restart after a crash involving Felix Rosenqvist, Augustin Canapino and Benjamin Pedersen brought out the red flag. McLaughlin pressured Kirkwood all the way to the flag but couldn't find a way past on the narrow street circuit. Alex Palou strengthened his championship lead with a close third. Success for Aussie driver Matt Campbell with a win in the latest IMSA race at Road America. Campbell and co-driver Felipe Nasser gave Penske Porsche their first IMSA victory of the season after a largely frustrating year. It was an all-the-way win for the team after the Pole City Cadillac crashed in the race warm-up. It was a good race for Aussies, with Tasmanian driver Josh Burden winning in LMP3 alongside Gar Robinson. Chris Boucher won his second consecutive NASCAR Cup Series race, taking out the rain-delayed race at Michigan Speedway. Martin Truex Jr. dominated most of the race, winning each of the race's first two stages, but found himself chasing for most of the final run. Boucher withstood everything Truex could throw at him, hanging on to win by just over 1/100th of a second. Denny Hamlin was third. The series now moves to the road course at Indianapolis, where they will once again be joined by Chicago winner Shane Van Gisbergen, along with fellow supercar driver Brody Kostecki. A win to Nissan in the latest round of the Japanese Super GT series at Fuji. The number 3 Nissan, shared by Katsumasa Shio and Matsunori Takaboshi, was the class of the field in an interrupted race on Sunday, taking the checkered flag 44 seconds clear of the field. The race was red flagged after the number 25 Supra of Nonaka and Suganami was consumed in a blaze as marshals struggled to contain the fire. The driver was unhurt. It was a big weekend for Lamborghini in the latest rounds of the DTM at the Nürburgring. In race 1, Mirko Bortolotti clinched his first DTM victory, fending off Lucas Auer in the race fraught with incidents and held in unpredictable conditions. Bortolotti, who started from pole, crossed the line in his Lamborghini Huracan just under 2 seconds clear of Auer in the Mercedes-AMG GT3. On Sunday, it was a breakthrough win for young driver Maximilian Paul, who battled his way through challenging conditions to take his first DTM victory in only his 4th race in the series. It was also the first win for Grasser in the DTM. And victory for Toyota in the latest round of the World Rally Championships in Finland as Elfyn Evans won the famous Rally of Finland. The Toyota Gazoo racing driver dominated the event to take another 25 points in the fight for the World Rally Championship. Kylie Rovanpera remains championship leader as the series moves on to Greece from the 7th of September for the Acropolis Rally. And Melbourne driver Jordan Caruso has closed the gap in the National Sports Sedan Series after 2 race wins last Sunday at Queensland Raceway. Caruso won both Sunday's races after a second-place finish on Saturday to the Alfa Chev of Tony Ricciardello. New South Wales driver Ash Jarvis had another consistent weekend to hold his championship lead as the teams prepare for round 3 at Sydney Motorsport Park in early September. You're watching In Pit Lane, and when we return, we'll take you up the Hume Highway to Winton for the historic Festival of Speed. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
My name's Kevin West. This is Peter Turner's old car that he built back in 1968 when he was a young bloke. The Grand Tinny 3B, the third one of 3 built, and it's been campaigned over the years from historic Mount Tarrangara, South Australia, at Malala, at Tailem Bend. It's also been to Wakefield Park, Calder back in its day, and Sandown. It runs a Holden 6-cylinder with triple Webbers and a Volkswagen gearbox turned upside down. Quite a unique car for its day and quite quick in its time, and still campaigned today very successfully. Here at Winton, it does about 1 minute 30 seconds around the track if you're game enough to hang on to it. It's a bit of an evil little monster at times, but quite a handful to drive. So this was a hand-built car back in the day. Peter in 1968 was a young engineer, and he built the car in amongst a group of friends with some friends' help. And the Grand Tinny was one of about 7 tinnies. They had an Aussie tinny, a concert tinny, and a few others. The Grand Tinny was the grand one of all, and I believe it's the only one still running at this time in its life. The rest of them have since been dismembered or have passed their use-by date. After Peter was taken tragically in a car accident not far from here, the car was left to Peter's children as their only part thereof in his will, and his children were generous enough to hand the car along, as it was one of Peter's wishes for the car to be left in my hands, and Peter's kids were kind enough to pass the car around so it can continually be campaigned and be in the limelight rather than locked away in a shed. Traditionally, this runs in PQ&R sports and racing cars. The sports and racing cars aren't here this weekend, so we've campaigned the car alongside the young bloke in regularity this weekend, just to put the car on the grid so people can see it.
My name's Rachel Brown and I'm driving a 1917 T-Mile Ford racer this weekend at Winton. The car has a T-Mile Ford 4-cylinder 3-litre engine in it. Dad built it at least 24 to 20 years ago from pieces in a back paddock of the chassis, engine and some of the body structure as well. I was driving in regularity because I don't have my racing license quite as yet, so it's not too bad to drive since I've been driving it since I was able to reach the pedals, so that would have been at least 12. I find it quite easy to drive now. It's a lot easier to drive this than a modern car nowadays, since I'm so used to it. Here, I'm probably doing 120 k's an hour in this, but at other places we can go up to 160. But 160 is a maybe because the car starts running out of breath then. I find it quite relaxing and comfortable. Sometimes if I make a mistake, then yes, it makes my nerves go a little bit high, but I find it quite relaxing and easy out there. I would love to become a mechanic for any racing team. Big dream would be the supercars, but that's a big dream.
Welcome back to In Pit Lane. We're coming up this weekend out at Calder Park. For the first time since about 2014, we're going to see a full-on race meeting on the Calder Park flat track again. But part of the weekend will include a throwback to the golden days of the Calder Park Thunderdome, because the National Stockcar Series will be part of this weekend. It's a tribute, I suppose, to the golden days of NASCAR racing and superspeedway racing here in Australia, and, of course, to the incredibly popular NASCAR series in the United States as well. The guy behind the series is Zac O'Hara, and I caught up with him a little bit earlier in the week and asked him all about the National Stock Car Series in Australia and what we can expect to see this weekend at Melbourne's Calder Park.
Oh, how exciting. I never thought it would happen. It's been a personal dream of mine, I guess. For nearly 10 years I've been involved in the stock car racing, and I'm still in a little bit of disbelief for actually going back to where they belong.
Is that the excitement of it all? I mean, even though you're not racing on the Thunderdome, I believe that there are plans to have some parade laps over the course of the weekend. For a start, I mean, tell us about the National Series. We don't see a lot of it out there. Occasionally, it pops up into our view. How many cars are there, and what sort of cars are we running there? Are they all NASCARs, or there are other cars involved as well?
We run a variety of different types of stock car. So we have what was the Oz Truck Series here, which is a fiberglass bodied NASCAR truck style of car. We run your traditional cup cars, so former Thunderdome cars and some American NASCARs, and even some Oz cars in there for the mix. So it's a pretty cool group.
So how many cars are there all up and sort of eligible for your series around Australia? I mean, are we talking mostly the sort of the cars that used to run back in the day on the Thunderdome, or are people brought in newer cars? And, what sort of the range of cars we'll see at Calder Park this weekend?
A mixture of both. I'd say a good quarter, if not a bit more, of the field will be Calder Park history. The rest is the Oz trucks and newer model American stock cars.
So what are the highlights of the weekend? I mean, people who haven't been out to see these cars, they might be used to watching NASCAR on television, on the cable TV, but what are they going to see when they go out there on the weekend? How many cars are you going to have out there, and what are some of the highlights if people go out on the weekend?
We expect to have 15 cars on our grid for the weekend. Again, the mixture of trucks, NASCARs and Ozcar. I think the mixture of all of it makes a great spectacle. It's not a one-make series, which can be a bit boring. So there's something for everyone and something for everyone's budget. So I think we're heading in the right direction with the category.
What about the long-term future of the category in Australia? Do you think it's good, coming back to Calder Park? But the Thunderdome, I mean, speaking with the guys out there with Rowan, they sort of said the return to the Thunderdome isn't totally off the horizon, but at the moment it is. If it's going to come, it is a long, long way away. Without having the cars on the oval, do you think you can sustain and grow the category just on the flat track?
I think so, yes. We're predominantly a road race-based category. Even if ovals were a thing, it would be kind of dangerous to the category. We're very grassroots, and, you can fall off a flat track and survive. The car's okay. One mistake on an oval, the car's a write-off. So it's a very cool concept, but very risky and expensive as well.
Of course, we've seen Shane Van Gisbergen have success on the streets of Chicago just recently. He's going to be in action again this coming weekend in both the trucks at Indianapolis and also in the Sprint Cup Series. Do you think that would help, having sort of he's a New Zealander, but having a local guy in there, possibly somebody like Brodie Kostecki's long-term future as well? Do you think that would help the category in Australia?
Oh, I think it will in little parts. It's good that, the big guys doing NASCAR get people talking NASCAR, and we're relevant to that. We're the local series, and probably a bit more user-friendly. It doesn't cost a silly amount of money to do what we're doing. It's great fun.
So what is the attraction of the cars? Why why not sort of, something that is more mainstream, something that is perhaps more raceable in various meetings around Australia, like a sports sedans or even a TA2 car? What's the attraction of these cars in particular?
More so nostalgia and bang for buck. Like many of the other categories in this country are, in my opinion, a tad overpriced, but I guess everything in the world is expensive at the moment. But when you can have 700 horsepower and a car with some sort of history and get all of that for under 100,000, I think we're going okay.
So how easy is it to get the cars over from the United States? I mean, where do you find, if I go out looking, saying, I wouldn't mind buying myself an old NASCAR, where do you find them? Is it sort of, NASCARs are us, or where do you go?
We have plenty of our own contacts in North Carolina and around the US. There's still a few left here in Australia as well, running cars ready to go. So they're not as rare or as old as people think. If you want one, you can have one.
If people are coming out to Calder Park on the weekend, I mean, a lot of us, grew up at Calder Park, and it'll be very nostalgic heading out there this weekend because we obviously haven't seen anything on the road circuit for quite a few years, at least. It's almost coming up to 10 years now, I think. If people go out there and they want to find out more about the category, first of all, online, where do they go and how do they find out more about it?
Check us out, Stockcars Australia National Series on Facebook, and of course we're all over everywhere else on the internet. But please do come out and support Calder Park. I'm very proud to be part of the first meeting back, and they need all the support that they can get. It's walk up the steps again and let's get Calder Park going again.
Well, I think a lot of people are looking forward to it this weekend. It'll certainly be a nostalgia fix for a lot of us who spent so much of our misspent youth out at Calder Park, whether it's the drag racing or the Thunderdome or on the circuit. Look, good luck for the weekend with everything you're doing. And if people want to come out and see you, I imagine that you're not adverse, and you and the guys aren't adverse to people wandering into the paddock and having a chat with you and perhaps having some photos taken with some of the cars.
No problem at all. Come into the pit sheds, sit in some cars. I'm happy to talk to anyone about the series and what I'm doing with it, where I'm going. We're a very open series. There's no closed doors here.
Okay, well, good luck with it on the weekend, and we'll see you out there. And until then, Zac O'Hara, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And thank you to Zac O'Hara for joining us on the program. Yes, it'll be great to get out to Calder Park and see some racing again. It's certainly been a long time. I think I said in the interview, about 2014, we think was about the last time that we had a circuit race meeting out at Calder Park. So it'll be certainly a nostalgic moment to go back there and check it out once again. Now, coming up soon on the program, coming up in September, we're going to be back in the studios of RMITV Student Television for a brand new series of the program, but that is dependent on us finding some sponsors for the next season. There are costs involved. As we said, this is obviously an all-volunteer crew here in Pit Lane and on the programs from RMITV Student Television. But yes, there are costs. There's quite a few costs involved in making this happen. And if we don't get support from sponsors, unfortunately, we just have to pull the plug. We've been very, very lucky over the years to have some fabulous sponsors who have kept us on the air, kept us on air for this long, and we really do appreciate all of them. And if you'd like to join that sort of, that roll call of companies involved in sponsoring In Pit Lane over the years, we'd love to hear from you. Just send us an email. It's at advertise@inpitlane.com, and we'll tell you about how you can have primetime, free-to-air television exposure right across Melbourne and Geelong here on In Pit Lane on Channel 31. But until we see you again next week on the program, have a good weekend. Enjoy whatever you're doing out at Calder Park or Sandown or wherever you're going. We'll see you next week. Until then, bye for now.